Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to the Short War video, and today we have breaking news that the Russian General Valery Gerasimov has been spotted visiting inside of Ukraine to present medals to Russian soldiers. And that's definitely a big deal because many people were speculating that he was either deceased or he was seriously injured or maybe even assassinated by the Russian government. And today we appear to have perhaps evidence that maybe he is actually still alive. And we're also receiving some disturbing news about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant today, which we will go over in just a moment. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into our first post of the day, which is from the Kyiv Post. And this post is about Gerasimov. It says, Russia's missing armed forces chief reappears after 7 entire weeks. And the absence of the Russian General Gerasimov following a January missile attack led people to widespread speculation that he had been killed or seriously wounded. And as of right now, we do have a video which I'm going to show you in just a moment, which depicts him actually allegedly in Avdiivka or somewhere in that region, giving out medals to these soldiers. So I'm going to leave it up to you as to whether or not you believe the footage, if you think it is real, or if it's maybe backdated or something like that. But anyways, let's move into that footage right now and take a look and examine what we have here. So we're going to send this full screen and take a peek. And as you can see here, this is the typical Russian propaganda format. He's flying in a plane, and here he is being filmed talking to someone, pretending like he knows what he's doing. And here he is allegedly in Ukraine, in Avdiivka, and these are Russian soldiers which are in Ukraine fighting. And here are some medals he's planning on handing out as well. And, you know, it's really hard to tell from this footage when this was taken. If you're a skeptic, you're going to think that maybe this is old footage that they're replaying like it's new, which is definitely a possibility. But we really can't gather any concrete details from this footage alone because there's simply not enough information in it, and we can't see the surrounding environment either. So we simply see him in a bunker of some sort handing out medals, which there's not much to deduce from that. But with that being said, that is pretty much all that video is going to show. But what we do see is, allegedly, Gerasimov on footage. That's a rare sighting these days, and perhaps he is still alive. But with that being said, we're moving on to our next post here, which goes to the Kyiv Post, and this is that article which is quite disturbing about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. It says here that the Zaporizhzhia NPP lost communication with its last backup external power transmission line, reports the IAEA, and currently the station is receiving electricity from only the 750 kilovolt line, which, in their opinion, underscores the fragile situation with nuclear safety at the facility. And in my opinion, this is not the most serious thing that's happened at the plant, although it is a serious safety issue. The Russians have placed explosive around these reactors in the past, and they still might even be there. We're really not sure either because we really can't get the IAEA or anyone else to give us really concrete and solid information because it seems like they sort of switch their opinion every other day. But what we know here is the plant is still in peril, nothing has really changed, and the Russians are still acting very reckless with this nuclear facility, which has the potential to cause extreme damage across Europe. Not good, but we're going to have to wait for more details to come out before we report any further. And with that being said, we're moving on to our next one here, which goes to Politico Europe. And as we reported yesterday, the situation between Poland and Ukraine over that grain crisis is becoming much more tense. We have Ukrainian politicians making statements such as Poland being a sponsor of genocide, which is a very big accusation to make. And today we see that the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will seek urgent talks with the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk as a border blockade by Polish farmers plunged relations between those two allies into absolute crisis. And I think that is the best move to make. I really applaud Zelensky for making that move because he could have simply come out and echoed the very charged accusations of his intelligence officers by saying that Poland is sponsoring a genocide, but instead Zelensky is taking the appropriate route, in my opinion, by meeting with Tusk in private and trying to find a diplomatic solution to this issue without escalating things any further. And like I've said before, it's very important that Zelensky maintain good relations with the Polish because right now the Polish are one of Ukraine's lifelines because the West is having a very hard time passing aid and he needs every single lifeline he can get, and the Polish are a major one for Ukraine. But with that being said, we're moving on to yet our next article here, which is from Nexta, and we're learning that yet another Russian propagandist has gotten on the bad side of Putin, and he has been messed up indeed. This is the author of a Russian Z channel, and he has allegedly taken a permanent nap by his own doings. And it says here that he previously wrote about heavy losses of Russians in Avdiivka, And in some posts before he took a nap, he complained about harassment by propagandists, and also complained about some harassment from the Russian government as well. So, you know, you can take this for what it is. You can maybe believe that he decided to take this step himself, or maybe perhaps you're on the side of maybe some other people, skeptics, that think that this guy was actually another victim of Russia's assassination division. And I have to lean toward that second option. I don't think this was an accident or something that was done by the guy himself. I think this was something that was sanctioned by the Russian government because he simply wrote the truth. The Russians took massive losses in Avdiivka. It was not a real victory. It was a Pyrrhic victory, and it came at a great cost. In fact, it was way, way more costly than it should have been for the Russians to really consider that a victory. So he spoke the truth, and he paid the price for it. And that's pretty much status quo with all Russian propagandists at this point. And with that being said, we're jumping into our next article here, which goes to Nexta as well. And we see here that the mourners of Navalny, who showed up to his memorial, are now being summoned to the military recruitment centers inside of Russia for their involvement in participating in mourning the death of Navalny. And they're paying a price themselves, not quite as high as that Russian propagandist in the last post, but now they're going to be basically sentenced to death as well by being sent to the front line and thrown into the meat grinder. It does seem to be here a simple recruitment, but it's actually a little bit more sinister than that, because we know that the Russian soldiers are getting killed off in mass right now in Ukraine, and this is basically a death sentence. So if you decide to go in Russia and mourn the death of Navalny, then, you know, you're going to be in some big trouble. So if this doesn't sort of indirectly prove that Navalny was assassinated by Russia, I'm not sure what other evidence really can more directly prove that. But with that being said, we're moving on to yet another article, and this one is also from Nexta. We got a bunch from them today, and we're learning some news about Russia and Iran's partnership. And we can see here that Iran has provided Russia with about 400 surface-to-surface ballistic missiles, says Reuters, and according to their reporting. Right here, we're seeing once again Iran is strengthening its ties with Russia, which is not good, because right now, Iran is sending more weapons to Russia than it seems like the West is sending to Ukraine. I think that'll turn around very quickly, but nonetheless, in the short term, it looks like Iran and Russia's relationship is becoming very strong, which is not good for Ukraine. And moving on to our next article here, we have one from the Kyiv Independent, and this is some very positive news for Ukraine. We're learning some information about those F-16s and the pilots being trained. And we can see, according to a post from CNN, the first group of Ukrainian pilots to complete US-led F-16 training will be completed by this summer, which is just about a couple of months away. And according to CNN, the pilots who've been training at U.S. Air Base in Arizona since October are expected to complete their training between May and August, although the exact completion date depends on their progress through the program. And this is great news, and it comes at a very, very good time as well, because if the Ukrainians can get those F-16s and actually get these aircraft in the air with their pilots piloting them, that will give them a massive advantage on the front line and will basically give them the tools they need to be able to push the Russians back. And the Russians are fearing this quite greatly. That's why they're opposing this so much, and they're creating such a ruckus about it. They don't want those F-16s to get to Ukraine because they know that is about to be an absolute slaughterfest on their soldiers, and they can't afford that. But moving on to our next post here, we have one from the Kyiv Post, and we're learning that the Russians have lost yet another jet. They've lost another Su-34 aircraft, and it was destroyed by Ukrainian soldiers, according to the commander of the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And truly, the Russians are losing aircraft like it's going out of style at this point. These are big, multi-million-dollar aircraft here, and Russia has a very limited supply of these aircraft, and they're losing them like they're candy. The Ukrainians are simply upping their air defense so well and so fast that the Russians' so-called air supremacy is starting to become very, very small. And that's obviously good news for Ukraine, because when Ukraine receives the F-16s, not only will they have an advantage, but yet the Russian Air Force is going to be so greatly diminished that they're going to have a pretty equal footing, if not an advantage on Ukraine's side. So hopefully the Russians keep losing more aircraft. So that is actually our last post of the day. And with that, I hope you found this video informative. And if you have, please press that like button and subscribe to the channel as well. It greatly helps us get the news out. And if you want to support us financially, you can do so over on our Patreon page. The link is in the description below. And once again, that greatly helps us out as well. So we'll see you all tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on our nightly war news stream. And with that, bye-bye for now.